Hi everyone, a big welcome back to the Deep Psychology Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the warrior archetype, a super important archetype both for men and for women that basically explains our power, our drive, our courage, and our sense of purpose in life. If you feel like you're lacking any of these traits in any of your projects or in your life as a whole, then please stick around. Welcome to the Deep Psychology Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Edwards, author, coach, and podcaster. We cover deep insights into your psychology, helping you grow in psyche and spirit. Make sure to subscribe to Deep Psychology on Spotify or Apple to stay up to date. You can also visit the website deep-psychology.com, visited by tens of thousands of people every month for lots of free resources. If you want to go deeper with this work, you might like to do coaching with me, head to the website for more details. It's time for today's episode. So, last week I spoke about the four main masculine archetypes, which are the warrior, magician, the lover, and the king. And my article on the warrior archetype is one of my most popular articles on the internet. Dozens of views every single day. And so I wanted to make this episode to really cover the warrior archetype more closely. So I did speak about it last week, and you're very welcome, of course, to go back and check out that episode to get a flavour of the other three main male archetypes and how they weave together. An archetype is sort of like a behavioural or personality template, a collection of sort of recognisable behaviours, traits and emotions that seem to be present in different characters. In fact, you can see the archetypes across film, across fiction, across human history. They're like these repeating templates or behaviour patterns, okay? And one of the messages from the investigators, the researchers behind the four male masculine archetypes, although I would say these also apply to women, so it's not just male, although together they form sort of an ideal healthy male archetype. What the warrior does is basically allows us to channel our aggression towards a noble cause, prioritizing the greater good over personal gain. So, to me, this is a really crucial point and a crucial contribution from them, because I find that basically in modern society, in postmodern, sensitive, egalitarian, inclusive society, we tend to confuse aggression with being punitive or being selfish or being egocentric or being sort of domineering, okay? And what this archetype shows us is that it doesn't need to be a negative thing. It doesn't need to be pursued for egocentric purposes, okay? Our power, our energy, our passion, our aggression, our anger, we can channel that towards a noble cause. So we're sort of taking a very traditional masculine trait. If you were to think about what are the men from 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what would they be characterized as? One of their main things is anger. There's literally neurological and biological research being done into the unique characteristics of men when it comes to anger and aggression and so on. And so this would be one of them. And in our modern society, it's been sort of shunned and misunderstood and sort of negated. And I think, speaking personally, it's something that I've maybe lacked throughout my life, is that warrior energy. It's sort of like that fuck you energy, except what we're asking ourselves to do here as healthy men and as healthy women who contribute to a better society and a better world is to channel it towards some noble cause. So we're not channeling it towards hitting children and to, being domineering in business and whatever. It's towards a noble cause, prioritizing the greater good. And ideally, the warrior actually acts as a protector, defender, and champion rather than pursuing self-centered goals. So let's look at the key traits, okay? And these are things we can look at in ourselves, in our personality. We can look at these traits and say, do I have these to a sufficient level in this project, in this business, in this cause that I'm fighting for, in this particular challenge that I'm facing in my life, okay? And to the extent that we are is the extent to which we're embodying the warrior archetype. And if we notice that we're lacking in any, we ask, okay, how can I then bring each of these in? And then we're going to start embodying the warrior much better. And what I like about, just before I get into these key traits, is the one thing I like about the archetypes. I actually am a huge fan of them. I think they're really overrated, to be honest. But one thing I like about them, it sort of externalizes the issue. So, in traditional therapy and traditional psychotherapy, we tend to personalize our issues or our lack of a certain quality or a lack of this or a lack of that. And what these archetypes do, we talk about a warrior archetype. We talk about how well we embody it. We don't talk about lacking something. We don't talk about, our trauma in the past came in and blocked this up. We just say, how well am I embodying it? Of course, we can explore the reasons why we're not. But it externalizes it. And it's not a personal characteristic anymore. It's more something human that we are tapping into, something that's in sort of the collective memory, as it were. And to me, it's very liberating. I hope you can feel that, and I hope you understand what I mean by that. So anyways, let's go into the key traits. First of all, courage. Quite an obvious one, right? How can a warrior be a warrior if they're not courageous? That's one of the things that we admire in warriors, real life warriors and soldiers, and even down to people like activists. One of the reasons they inspire us is because they're courageous. So they're willing to face danger, and they're willing to take a moral stance to fulfill a mission, right? So how courageous are you? You have to ask yourself that question. How courageous are you? Do you, when you're faced with a challenge or an obstacle, do you fold, or does it make you sort of stand up and pump your chest and, say, bring it on, and sort of, with a sense of relish and a sense of challenge? That is courage. And again, because of our, and sort of in a way it's anti-masculine, because of our anti-masculine Western culture, this is beaten out of us, and we're taught to be sensitive, and we're taught to be kind of offended. No, I'm going to teach you to be courageous. Let's be courageous. Let's not be offended. Let's not be victims. Let's not look for reasons for, what this person said isn't politically correct and all the rest of it. Where is your courage, right? That is the warrior archetype. It's the main trait of the warrior, is to be courageous. Second, purpose-driven. Purpose-driven just means that we focus on a cause that's larger than our own self-interest. So this is where the warrior isn't a malignant force, it's a benevolent force in the world. When a soldier goes off to war and they're ready to take a bullet in the chest for their country, that is purpose-driven. They're thinking about, okay, I might die, but how does that play into the bigger picture? And this is the warrior energy. The warrior will fight, and there's a certain release of the self-sense, of self-identity, when you identify with a bigger purpose. And you're not fighting for yourself, and you're not fighting to be a hero, and you're not fighting to be a martyr. You're fighting you're sort of adopting this aggressive energy to get something pushed through. This is like what activists do. When they're fighting for civil rights, or they're fighting for human rights, or they're fighting against corporations, or whatever it is, sometimes, there's self-centeredness in there, but often it's just, this is the cause, and I am just a vehicle for this bigger moral purpose to come through. Now, your warrior archetype, we don't need to be an activist to express it. The purpose doesn't have to be some moral cause. It can be a business, it can be a project, it can be a relationship, it can be even a hobby or a skill that you're getting involved in, right? But ultimately, it's not just about you. It's not about what you can gain from it. If your business is just for personal gain, I would suggest you're not going to embody the warrior archetype very well. It has to focus on something larger than you. Trait number 3, resilience and perseverance. Right, so this is just, again, a classic one that we inherently recognize in the warrior and the warrior characters in stories and films and whatnot. Resilience and perseverance, again, this is something that I find is really lacking. I don't want to say nowadays, because obviously I wasn't alive in the past, but I teach meditation, I do coaching with people, and one of the main things that I just see as lacking is resilience and perseverance. And I don't know if that's a recent thing. I don't know if it's what the causes are necessarily. What I will say is that because of the internet, it's very tempting and AI especially, it's tempting to back down in the face of something that is going to take a long time, that is full of obstacles, and that isn't pleasant. But listen, if you're going to achieve anything, and that includes a noble cause of any kind, if you're going to do something, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to face obstacles on the way, right? So that's where your resilience and your perseverance is absolutely essential. I've found that pretty much in anything that I do, if I don't have resilience and perseverance, I am gone. Like within the first few weeks, there is simply no way that I'm going to keep going, right? So this is the warrior in us. This is the never say die attitude. It's, here's an obstacle, here it comes, I can see it, here it's coming. How can I solve it? How can I get around it? How can I maneuver it? How can I be clever? And how can I deal with all the emotional baggage and all the emotional labor that comes with taking action over a long period of time? You're going to meet this in pretty much any area of life, okay? Number 4, strength. Again, just a classic warrior characteristic. Physical, emotional, and mental fortitude. The beauty about inner strength is that it makes you kind of immune to problems. That doesn't mean you're not going to face problems, right? Doesn't mean you're not going to face obstacles, but if you're a weak person, obstacles, even very small ones, can just mow you down, right? And you just fold like a pack of cards in when you're faced with them. When you're strong, these things, not only, it's not that you're not scared, it's just that you realize that you have to stand up. That's the only way. If you're going to overcome this obstacle, you're going to have to stand up and fight. And they actually become a way for you to become stronger. It's like a self-perpetuating mechanism. The stronger you are, the more difficult obstacles you're able to face, and that then makes you stronger, right? Whereas you're weak, a small obstacle will overcome you, and then the next obstacle, which might even be smaller than the previous one, is more likely to overcome you still. So strength, that's another critical trait of the warrior. Action-oriented. I love this. One of the episodes that I had published last month as part of my August Wisdom series was that basically to be successful in things, we need to favor action over thinking, right? We need to have a rapid speed of implementation. So do you do that in your life, in your projects? If you're learning a language, if you're learning an instrument, if you're learning a new skill, if you're trying to start a business, are you taking action, or are you just, churning things over in your mind and just sort of trying to figure it all out mentally? That isn't how you do it. You have to take action, right? It's imperfect. Action is always imperfect. You have to understand this, but it always trumps inaction. In fact, a book I'm reading right now, I can't remember who the author is, but one of their basic sort of maxims is that action always trumps inaction. Action always trumps inaction. Now, the warrior archetype within us knows this, right? So, how well are you doing this right now in your life? And so these are the key traits, okay? Courage, purpose-driven, resilient and perseverant, strong and action-oriented, right? And, what I found with the warrior is that you can actually feel it inside you. Well, if it's developed, you can, right? And it's almost like something that you can deliberately tap into whenever you need it, right? There are many ways to do this, and I'm not really going to go into these at the moment, but what you can do is things like voice dialoguing, right? You can almost sort of ask questions to this warrior energy inside you. What do you want? What do you think of this problem? How can I be stronger? And all of this kind of thing, all to do with these traits. And then you respond as the warrior, and you feel in your body that sort of inner strength and that inner never say die attitude and that inner sort of fuck you energy, right? And the more you can tap into it as an actual living energy, a living sort of personality within you, is the more you're going to embody that archetype in your life, because it's going to come out more and more when it's awakened as you need it, okay? Let's talk about the shadow expressions, because what we've done in modern culture is we've sort of equated the shadow expressions of the warrior with the healthy expression. So the shadow is basically being addicted or being allergic to the warrior. Being addicted to the warrior looks like aggression as we typically conceive it in a negative sense. It's basically being selfish, brutal, or destructive. Your energy isn't directed to a noble cause. It's directed to your own self-interest, and you're basically willing to do anything to get there. And let's be honest, one of the people in the world that embodies this most is the current president of the US, Donald Trump. I think in many ways he's an unhealthy warrior, and he's, one of the most powerful people in the world. So watch out for this. This is a big trap, and it's one of the traps of traditional masculinity. However, what is also a trap in the modern day is the other side of the coin, which is being allergic to the warrior. And this is what's happened. We've repressed the warrior, and it's made us meek, passive, and like doormats, unable to assert ourselves, unable to assert our desires, and basically unable to even channel our warrior energy towards positive causes, right? So, and this is not healthy. If you've had this in your life, if you've had an allergy to the warrior, you're going to feel it in your bones, right? You're going to feel weak. You're going to feel, learned helplessness phenomenon. You're going to feel like you just can't do it. It can even lead to depression, anxiety, because our anger is then channeled towards ourselves, not outwards. All right, so I really, really, really encourage you to really study these traits and to ask yourself really sort of direct, powerful questions. How well do I embody courage? How strong am I? How action-oriented am I? Am I purpose-driven, or am I just trying to accumulate for myself, right? And, to the extent that we embody these traits is the extent to which we are embodying the warrior, and the extent to which that is part of our healthy masculinity, but also not just masculinity, it's the extent to which we're healthily human, because women can also tap into healthy masculinity too. All right, folks, that's me done for today. Remember that I do one-to-one coaching. You can book a free 30-minute, no obligation call with me by heading to the link in the home page of my podcast, and I would really love to work with you. That's all I have to say about the warrior archetype. Take care, and I'll see you on Sunday for the next installment in the Levels of Spirituality series. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please leave a review and make sure to subscribe on Apple or Spotify. If you'd like to go deeper with this work, head to deep-psychology.com to do coaching with me. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.